even if you have an idea of what your normal is, you are now not normal because you're like, I have to be normal.
Right, you're playing normal and not
so
being normal.
you're
It's
thinking
wild.
so you're thinking about what makes you normal and not just being you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so appealing about the show is it lets Ronald be Ronald.
A lot. And that's really the meat.
No, I am your father. And here we go.
That belongs in a museum.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
You're gonna need a bigger boat. This is Sparta!
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
Welcome back to Easily Entertained, the podcast where we talk about whatever we want that we find entertaining.
Yes, sir.
It's a great time. This week we are reviewing Jury Duty. It's a show on Netflix that's... Netflix, yeah. Prime.
Amazon Prime.
I'm so used to just saying Netflix.
Yeah,
quite
honestly.
Almost everything I've reviewed has been on Netflix at some point.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. It's about a guy who he gets called to jury duty.
Right.
But it's all fake. But he's the only one who doesn't know it's fake.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard it where the guy gets Truman Showed. Is what
Exactly.
happens.
And it's so fun because all these people that are in jury duty, all of them are actors. So they're all just playing roles and they are committing fully to the bit. But he's not in on it. He thinks it's real.
Yep.
And to make it even more real and to give him a lot of pressure, they make him the four-person, yeah, of the jury. And so in this little made-up case that they're doing, he's paying so close attention.
Yeah.
But all these actors are there to kind of
throw wrenches into it.
Exactly. Make a mess of things. And he never finds out until the very end. And it's such a solid concept because they kind of play on like a documentary type style.
Interviewing everybody that's involved and what have you.
It almost kind of feels like The Office in a way.
Yeah, for a few moments.
But way more unscripted, at least for his moments for sure.
Certainly there's a lot of improv.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think like the way they play it off, like they play it off as if they're doing a documentary on the justice system.
Right, yeah.
Because that's how they get him to do it. And like it's how they kind of play with it to be like, oh, this is why all these random people are here.
That's why there's cameras everywhere.
And why there could be cameras and an actor that's there. Because they are on jury duty and they could have random people just be on it.
Yeah.
And so it makes for a very interesting dynamic between everything. And I really like it. And probably the best thing about the show is it's meant to showcase like the best humanity has to offer.
Right, yeah. So like because that's something that I truly, truly loved because we get down, there's like 8 episodes, I think. We get to episode 7 and
we watched it all in a day. We were menaces.
Truly.
I don't think you understand. When was it? Was it Tuesday or Thursday?
Just binged it.
Where, we watched all of them.
The whole thing.
All at once. We were like, oh yeah, we're going to watch the rest of this.
Yeah.
One day.
We get down to episode 7 and like the story, the written story, like it's written. They had to write and then obviously like account for certain scenarios. But the written story comes to an end and like the case is closed. I'm like, well, where are we going with this? And they're like, oh yeah, they got to tell the guy.
We got to explain to the guy that it's all fake.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of every episode, they're like, everyone here is fake.
Is an actor.
One guy isn't, but he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But it's such a fun concept.
Right.
And
they very easily could have made it like a prank show.
Oh, absolutely.
And totally just like blown it out of the water and be like, haha, you're so stupid. But they don't do that. And that's where the true beauty of it to me comes in. Because, of course, we all love a good laugh. But especially when it comes to, something around the judicial system and what have you.
It's hard to have a laugh with the judicial system.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny to laugh at some of the people in it, because, like Supreme Court justices are freaking stupid.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. They just are so out of touch
Very
with the
old.
world.
Very old.
Too old. Okay.
Yeah.
They're withering away.
Yeah. It's rough.
I say... No, I can't say that on here.
Womp.
But yeah, so the show, it's kind of just to give a little look at sort of the behind the scenes of the justice system, but mainly more about the main character, Ronald. Yeah. And so...
they at the end of toward the end of the show, they call him like the hero.
Yeah.
Right? That's the idea. They've written him as the protagonist, effectively, which is super awesome, instead of calling him like, guy who isn't in on it or dummy.
Yeah, so at the very end, when they reveal that it's all fake, they're like, this trial was all fake, but it was not the only trial that was going on. The whole thing was based around this guy because they were doing it to see how he would react to different situations, how he would connect with certain people, and
Who he would defend.
exactly
And how he
what
would do
kind
it.
of what kind of person he is.
Right.
And so
that was really what's on trial, is kind of the
yeah,
thing there.
his humanity was on trial.
Yeah.
And at the very end, they show all of the good things that he did,
Mm-hmm.
sticking up for people or taking the blame for things. Like there's
Right.
a funny moment where in his apartment, the actor James Marsden, they like fake like a dump in a toilet that clogs it.
Yeah.
And looks
like a monster.
foul.
Yeah.
And so they have to get the janitor to come clean it up. And he's like, "You did this?" And he knows it wasn't him, but he was like, "Yeah,
yeah.
I can't help it."
He takes it. He takes the blame for James.
And then there's just another really wholesome time is there's one of the characters has a birthday.
Oh, yeah.
And they get all this stuff set up. And again, the actor, James Marsden, because he's playing like an exaggerated version of an actor.
He's the only guy who's playing himself. And of course, like Bryson said, it's an exaggerated version of himself. So they've written him as like the uppity
What you
actor.
think of when you think actor. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, this
stereotypical.
is like a snobbish kind of guy. And that's how they wrote him. And
Right.
so he thinks it's for him because he lost a role and he thinks it's a pity party.
Right.
So he destroys like the cake that was there. And everyone like, this wasn't for you, dude. And so Ronald like tries everything to kind of still make it work so that
Yep.
they can still celebrate this guy's birthday.
Yeah.
And that makes the actor feel bad, and like they get a cake. He goes and gets
to get
a cake.
second. Yeah.
And so it's a really fun way of seeing how people genuinely react.
Right.
Because most of the time, as soon as you put a camera on someone, they act different.
Yeah, it's almost like that What Would You Do show on a huge, like, 16-day scale, because they got this guy for 16 days. And that's a really, really awesome part about that last episode, is they show you all the kind of struggles that they had with it, where they're like, we kind of didn't expect him to get as, like, intense as he was getting about it. So we kind of had to start writing more into the case, because we didn't think he'd go so hard into it. We thought he'd be too preoccupied with our actors. So,
But he took it so serious.
Yeah.
Like, he's writing notes. So, like, as jury, you have to make it unanimous on your decision.
right.
And so he's just putting out the facts. And he's like, this is what I think. And this is why I think it. I can be swayed this one way. You guys can be swayed. We just need to figure this out. And so they're all looking at the facts. And he's taking it incredibly seriously, which is wonderful because he's fully committed.
Right.
And that lets all the actors be fully committed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which, speaking of, any shot in the series, most of them, where Ronald is not in it, they still have to commit to the bit because
You never know when he's turning the corner.
exactly. There's a specific scene that I think of when James
Gets the bad news.
he gets the bad news. He didn't get a role that he was wanting. And so he walks out into the hall and he's screaming and he throws his phone in the trash. That's like a security guard's phone.
Yeah, he throws a security guard's phone in the garbage. He's like, I'm sorry, man.
And
I know that was
originally
your phone."
watching it, I was like, why did they record this part? It's not real. But then I remembered they have to commit because what if Ronald were to hear it or if he walks out and doesn't see something
Yeah.
that he's supposed to.
And then for me, when it came to that scene and other scenes like that, where it's like, oh, well, Ronald didn't see that, like Dewey. And then I was like, but it is part of the story. It's written in. And so he told Ronald about it sometime. Because there's so much footage. I've got to believe there's so much footage they didn't use. And because even in that last episode, they show some footage that isn't in any of the episodes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love like deleted scenes or just all the raw footage, to be honest, just to watch.
Just 16 hard days of footage. That'd be crazy.
That'd be a lot. But
yeah, the dedication of the team.
Yeah, everybody involved.
Like improv if something goes wrong. Because they say this at the end where the person that's playing like the bailiff, she called someone their real name.
Not the
by
actor
accident. And so they had to play it off and be like, oh, how do we do this? And they got someone to play the person that she called so that they can be like, oh, this is Charlotte.
Cassandra was the name.
Cassandra, that was right.
Yeah, she goes, Cassandra. And then she's like, why isn't she replying? And then it was like, oh.
And Ronald was like, we don't have a Cassandra.
Ronald goes, Cassandra? Who's Cassandra? And so, like, in the next scene where they were
they found someone.
They just grabbed somebody, and he's like, you are Cassandra. You've got to have this bag because it's somebody else's bag, but it's yours right now because you're Cassandra, and we got to play it off for Ronald. I was like, dang, that is hardcore.
Yeah, the just commitment is incredible. But, like, that's how you got to do it because you can't do these kind of documentary things and, like, even if you tell them, like, hey, this is a documentary, that's going to change how they act.
Yep.
And really the only thing he was fully aware of was the cameras in the courtroom and then the mics that they attach because this lets them talk about things together. It's more of an in-depth look,
and of course every time he was interviewed,
and eventually you do kind of forget that the mic is there because it's like a lavalier mic. It's not like a big mic that you're holding in front of your face.
Not one of these bad boys.
Most of the cameras were all hidden in things.
A lot of hidden stuff.
A lot of two-way mirrors so that you couldn't know.
Yeah.
And that keeps it really genuine.
Because it's so good.
Because
those are the moments where he's like, oh, there's not a camera here.
And that's like the hardest thing about filming, too, is telling someone to act normal.
Mm-hmm.
What
do you mean?
What's normal?
Normal.
Because even if you have an idea of what your normal is, you are now not normal because you're like, I have to be normal.
Right, you're playing normal and not
so
being normal.
You're thinking so you're thinking about what makes you normal and not just being you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so appealing about the show is it lets Ronald be Ronald.
A lot. And that's really the meat of it, too.
Mm-hmm. It shows his hero-ness.
Yeah, exactly.
Just being a good person. And because of that, they awarded him like $100,000 because he was just awesome and got so into it.
When I was telling my mom about it, she'd be like, what? I'd be so angry. They wasted my time. And then I was like, yeah, but they gave him $100,000. She's like, never mind. 16 days for $100. Sign me up.
For real. 16 days for $100,000. Bro, I'd be set for the whole year.
Yeah, easily.
I'd be set.
Sign me up.
For where I live, probably like 3 years, quite honestly. I'd be rocking.
Yeah, it'd be
like,
nice.
Let's go.
Yeah, and with more of like just showing the humanity and the show not being a total. It so easily could have been something like where like a YouTube prankster, and so at that final episode where they're showing him all the secret stuff in the courtroom that they built, and how they're showing him the two-way mirrors, and they're like, there was a guy in there, they're like, oh my gosh, oh, so funny, and also like really fascinating from like people who are interested in the filmmaking process, because you can really get into the behind the scenes, especially that last episode. The payoff in that last episode is unlike any other, to be honest. I compared it to the YouTube project from Mark and Ethan, Unis Honest, where like that last stream where they deleted everything at midnight, like that was a new feeling, like just a brand new feeling to the planet. And I think that Jury Duty does the same thing.
Yeah.
At least for me, it did. I was like, oh my gosh, this last episode is a brand new feeling.
And you're like, wow, this feels awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you
It
get to
was
see
really-
how everything fits into place.
And not only that, Ronald's seen it, and you're like, Ronald, look at you. You deserve all the smiles. You deserve all of this, and it's so good.
And like how he still keeps up with his friends
Yeah,
and everything that he
yeah.
made on the show. And I think that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
It gives you like that kind of faith in humanity
100%.
restored kind of feeling.
100%.
Because you're like, not everything in the world sucks nuggets.
Yeah, exactly.
And we love those kind of moments. And so
100%.
that
we need them, honestly. You need that to survive.
it's so true. And although we've kind of had a short episode today, we still have our question of the week, which kind of we just led into. And for the question of the week, we want to hear your responses.
Please.
We want to know what you would like, what you would respond with to
Right.
this. Do it on Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, wherever.
We'll read it, I promise.
Just let it know. So, this question of the week is, what is a moment that restored your faith in humanity?
Oh, just like any moment.
Yeah. A moment you've experienced, a moment you've witnessed, something like that. But something real.
Dang. That's kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, not to get too personal, I guess, not to get too private, but my grandma passed over the summer, and there was I worked at the Shakespeare Festival just as like house management. So picture a little dude in a vest and like, can I help you? Any questions? I was
Your
that
seat's
guy.
over there.
Yeah, that was me.
Sit down, Grandma.
Yeah, exactly. And the morning my mom called me to tell me that my grandma had passed, there was an older lady who I was helping, and just there was a really good experience for me. And so, yeah, I mean, as of recent, that's probably one of my moments.
Oh, yeah. What was the experience?
Yeah, so long story short, this old lady was kind of on her own here at the show, and I do my job. I was like, hey, can I help you? She had a walker. Hey, can I help you down the stairs? Can I take you to your seat? At the end of the show, I bring her walker to her. And then she starts going through her bag, like looking for money. And I'm like, well, okay, my advisor, like my boss never said we can't take tips, but I was like, I don't want to take tips. So I was like, I go and turn just to help another guest. And as soon as I'm done helping, I turn back and she's right there trying to hand me some money. And I'm like, oh, no, I can't. I can't take that. And she's like, are you a college student? To imply that college students need money, because they do.
We do. We're so poor.
And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, then you can take this. And then she says, go buy you some lemon drops. And that was one of my grandma's favorites. So I was like, oh, my emotions. It got me good. It definitely got me good.
Yeah.
But it was, it was just a good experience for me and what have you. So that's definitely one of the recent moments that restored my faith in humanity.
Yeah, that's a way good one. You always got to love the sweet little old ladies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, come on. Sweet old ladies are the best. Protect them with our lives.
Fantastic.
Sometimes I even want to protect the crotchety ones. They'll tell it like it is.
True, though. It's so unreal. They just are brutal. They hold nothing back. And sometimes you're like,
they got nothing to lose.
it's true.
man.
And sometimes you're like, well, thanks. I'm glad you could tell me. But sometimes you're like, well, I didn't really want to know that.
Well, thanks.
You're like, okay.
Great.
You're like, cool. Thanks for telling me that, buddy. I really wanted to be humbled today. That was wonderful.
Put right in my place. Okay, here we go.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, and then for me,
I was about to say, what's yours?
yeah, a good moment that kind of restored my faith. This was with a kid one time. When I worked at Lowe's, so a retail store, working retail sucks so much.
Terrible.
It's so bad.
I'm glad I haven't ever had to.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I think most people should work at least like 3 to 6 months in retail or food, so you get an appreciation for the people that work there, because you know how bad it is.
Right.
And you know that they hate their lives. And the customers make their lives miserable. And so it gives you a good perspective on things. And you're like, okay, maybe I don't be a dick to this person.
Right.
But so I was having a bad day one time. And thankfully, it wasn't a super busy day. It was just, I think I had like a couple people that were being jerks earlier in the day. And I was just kind of out of it.
Ready to clock out.
And like halfway on like the verge of tears, basically. At half the time, I was like, please, just no one yell at me.
Please, yeah.
And then this little girl came up randomly. And I didn't even think it was like showing very much and just gave me a hug. And they were like, I thought you needed this. And I was like,
what?
And I about sobbed.
Yeah.
I was like,
thanks.
that was the nicest thing
You're right.
I've ever seen. And
didn't mean it.
I'm not always the biggest fan of kids. If you know me, I'm not always the biggest fan of kids.
That's true enough. That's true enough.
But that was the cutest thing I've ever seen. And I was like, oh,
thanks.
that made my day.
Yeah.
That made my freaking year, dude.
Honestly.
I was like, wow. Okay. I have some more faith in humanity.
Right. There it is. There's a moment.
The next generation has potential. Let's go.
There's going to be some good eggs.
Exactly. But yeah, we want to hear what is a moment of faith restored.
Yeah. No pressure to share anything too crazy. But
yeah, you don't have to get extremely personal. You don't have to hit the details super hard if you don't want to. But, you know.
It's a good question of the week. That's how that last episode feels.
Yeah.
It just really is.
Absolutely.
I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great.
And with the show, for the most part, we like to talk about the really good things that we see in the movies. Sometimes we like to get a little bit pessimistic. But for the most part, it's why it's easily entertained. It's because we're always looking for the good stuff. And so we want to know what's some good things that you've experienced with humanity.
Spread some positivity.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah. Have a stroke. No, don't do that.
Please.
But yeah, answer the question of the week wherever you see fit. And until next time, this has been Easily Entertained.
You have been entertained.